Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Jersey Joe Corner. Yes, for those of you who are up to date, the Score app actually updated that Devil center Travis Zajac is going to be out 4 to 6 months. So let's talk about the good things and the bad things. First off, let's get to the bad. Well, the Devils lose a center 4 to 6 months, obviously. You lose a guy who's really good at faceoffs. And of course, you get someone who's a pretty good playmaker and has a really good shot. However, let me put it in perspective. Let's make this sound a lot better than it really is. Okay, the Devils have guys like Nico Hischier, Pavel Zacha, Adam Henrique, and you have Brian Boyle. Now, according to dailyfaceoff.com, they have their roster looking like this with the first line. And of course, I am, yes, wearing Taylor Hall. Okay, let's get that over with. So, on our left wing is going to be Hall on the first line. That's pretty much a given because he's a top two guy. So, on the top two line. And then they put Nico Hischier at center. Let me stop the puck right there. Nico Hischier is going to start off being a third line center. You do not want to rush him and make too many expectations of him just yet or anytime soon. Because when you bring in a kid who is the first overall pick, you want to ease that player in, especially if they're not projected to be a franchise player or a generational player. Now, let me put this in perspective. A kid like Nico is a very special player, very gifted player of his type. Especially, he had a really good year in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and of course, he put up a really good season on the Ivan Hlinka tournament and the World Juniors with Team Switzerland. Now, let's go to the other guy, right wing. They have Kyle Palmieri, and I agree that he's a top six forward and a right winger. So yes, he's going to be the guy sniping away along with his line mate Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall creates the speed. Palmieri creates the firepower, the sniping, all the other really good adjectives, and he brings the energy, and he is captain material. Let's put it that way. He really knows how to lead this team by example, whether it's on and off the ice or talking to teammates. He really knows how to play his game, and Ray Shero literally got him for next to nothing, or as we would like to say, a bag of pucks here in the States. Now, let me realign this. So, for the time being, the second line, according to the Daily Faceoff, would be Henrique at left wing, Zajac at center, and Marcus Johansson. Okay, now flipperoo. We're going to throw Adam Henrique to first line. Now, my second line would be put up, I would say, Nico Hischier at this time. Only for temporary, because I won't be surprised if Ray makes a player signing in the next coming days or the next coming weeks, whether it's a player tryout or a one-year deal. Let's get that out of the way. So let's just put Henrique's going to play with Hall and Palmieri. Now, let's move up Miles Wood. And then let's move up Brian Boyle with Miles Wood. So now you're going to have Marcus Johansson playing with either Wood and Boyle for the middle six. Now, Wood could definitely still play third line, double shift a little bit. But you also need, maybe Blake Coleman can play more fourth line minutes. But he's not exactly a big scorer. But he's definitely a grinder. And he can definitely tire out opposing defenses. And when you get someone playing center, you know, center is a very important position. So now if I double check the roster, see who else New Jersey has. Now, according to NJ.com, the first line was Hall, Zajac, Palmieri. Now, things are going to have to change a little bit. So they have, second line would be Henrique, Heischer, Johansson. Now they have, the third line would be Miles Wood, Zaha, and Nason. Nason actually had really good Corsi 4 numbers last season. So he had really good puck possession, and I feel he can score a little bit. But Miles Wood had a really great year, and I wouldn't be surprised if Blake Spears and Michael McLeod make the team, because Spears only played 3 games last year, but he really had a great World Juniors. And Michael McLeod definitely can play those bottom 6 minutes, especially whether he's a center or a winger. And of course, in Mississauga, he's been a very talented forward and captain, and he really led his team and propelled them through the playoffs, and he was a monster in the playoffs. So what I expect is to see if Spears and McLeod have really good camps, and if all goes to be well during a rebuilding year, you can play John Quenneville on the wing and maybe a little bit at center, but if you play him with Blandisi like he did versus the Rangers in that overtime game, I think those two really can get along very well on the same line. And those guys, actually, they got some really good chemistry. So even if the Devils win 80 points this season, 85 points, I wouldn't be surprised if given the defense, the defensive pairings right now from Daily Faceoff shows you have Andy Green with Ben Lovejoy. Okay, first off, I don't think of Andy Green as a top pairing defenseman these days, nor would I put Ben Lovejoy up on the same line. You have 2 old guys playing with each other, and that's not going to do any good. So let me shake this up. I would definitely take Green, put him down on the second with John Moore on the first pairing, and then move Severson up, and then you would have Green and Mueller, and then you'll have Kapla and possibly Lovejoy, or maybe Severson. Severson, I actually would keep at second line with someone like a John Moore, who is a great puck carrier. And remember, Ben Lovejoy is more of a defensive defenseman, but he can make a few good plays, though. But he really had a rough year. And remember, he's used to playing on a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins, where everyone else is shooting pucks on net and creating traffic and making things look easy. Remember, it wasn't an easy job when Lovejoy came over and became a New Jersey Devil. And Ben Lovejoy got really exposed. And for me as a fan, I think it's important that an older statesman, a player like Lovejoy and Green, end up playing with younger blood and players who have a knack for better chemistry. So you have a veteran and a young guy, especially when they create chemistry. Green is more of a stay-at-home defender these days, but he can still create some offense. Don't get me wrong, but there are plays, even when we play against the Rangers or Columbus, they're going to out-hustle a guy like Andy Green because he's not as fast as he used to be. And let's be straightforward. And same with Lovejoy. Same thing. However, John Moore, he's got above average speed, and he can skate, he can defend, but David Severson is a pretty good defenseman, but sometimes the problem is he pinches, especially when you're an offensive defenseman and you take a gamble when you try to make a play, cut the player off, you're trying to play the puck. Sometimes you're going up against that Datsyukin type player and they make a move around you. So you're here, they're going to go here around you, and they're going to lead you away from your own play, and they're going to take you into retreat, and they're going to try to create a penalty shot. So it is what it is. But I do like Kapla, but I don't think he's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But he's definitely, if he does turn out to be something useful, I'd rather see him play on bottom six. I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes a seventh defenseman. However, I would like to see a little bit more. But Mirko Mueller, he's a guy that Ray Shero invested in, and he was a former first-round pick of the San Jose Sharks. And the San Jose Sharks had a lot of veterans on defense. Especially, you had Dylan, who was one of those guys that was clogging that way for that young Swiss defender. There's a lot to... you got to take the expectations on a guy like Mirko Mueller. Remember, he didn't get to play a lot in San Jose. Why? Because former Devils coach, bench boss, Peter DeBoer, remember Adam Larson? He was benched a lot. And that slowed down his growth. And he didn't score a lot, but he was a pretty good defender. But he was still trying to learn. And the more he sat, the slower his progress was coming. Now, Mueller only had a few cups of Joe in his career. Now, he is invested in by general manager Ray Shero. Shero and Castron probably saw something that they seen in the AHL in Mueller that led to that trade before the draft day. And there's something going on that they might see this kid maybe as a two-way player. And I've heard from other people out there that he's got a similar defensive game and a little bit of an offensive game similar to Roman Josi. And I said in the last video, I admire Roman Josi, especially as a defender and an offensive defenseman. So that guy can play. Mirko Mueller, maybe not, but maybe something good, something positive out of trade, because this past free agency class, not that good at all. Especially when Shattenkirk went across the pond, across the Hudson. So anyways, this year is going to be a testament of the Devils' depth at forward. And don't be surprised if anyone in the Devils' system gets traded to bring in a pretty good defenseman. Because teams like the Detroit Red Wings are in cap hell. And it's not going to be easy for the Red Wings or a team of their type who have some good, interesting defenders. However, when they're running short on their farm system, they're going to want to jack up the price, kind of like oil. Like, for instance, everyone wants oil, but you have a price to pay, especially when there is not much in circulation. So that makes the return on investment a little bit higher to pay for the other team to reinvest in their system. So that could cause for maybe a second rounder, third rounder, fourth rounder, whatever the heck it might be the ransom. So let's put it this way. Detroit's not stupid. Other teams that deal with Ray either get slightly burnt or break even. And let's think about for the long term. Edmonton looks pretty good. Chiarelli traded for Adam Larson for Hall. So Shiro got a really good forward. And one of my buddies on Devil's Insiders, on Devil's Daily, was mentioning, there's a cap problem going on, restricted free agency wise, for David Pastrnak, who is a Czech forward. And this kid, he said, score 31 goals. Now, he was mentioning the idea of proposing Taylor Hall to get traded. I said to myself, maybe I could see that, but I don't want to trade the guy just now because I want to see what Pastrnak is going to do within the next season or two to see what he brings to the table and what can the Devils do to possibly get the guy. However, I do value defense. And defense is critical. This is a fast, attacking, and supportive league. You're going to get burnt by teams if you can't skate with them, and if you can't stay with them, you're going to get crushed. As simple as that. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Islanders were the last place team in the Metropolitan. I do think New Jersey's going to have a better year. However, I can see Ray pulling off a few extra moves between this upcoming season by the trade deadline and during the off season. So let me put it this way. Teams are always going to be talking with Ray Shero. Shero is a wheeler dealer. He has a really good history from his days in Pittsburgh, where he can talk to guys like David Poile and maybe some other guys like Chuck Fletcher in Minnesota. And Minnesota always has a great crop of defensemen, whether you're talking about Scandala or Jonas Brodin. Now, these guys have been groomed very well in their time with a team like Minnesota. So now, if you look forward to this upcoming season, and you say, Joe, what are you projecting? I'm projecting over 70, but a little bit below 90. So I'm guessing around 88 at the max. And if I'm wrong, I'll do a follow-up at the end of the season. So for those of you, my viewers, who are in Canada, US, Switzerland, Brazil, all over, please leave me a comment below and tell me what you thought of this show, and I'll be back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Have a great rest of the summer, and let's go Devils.